Welcome to Learn Commerce PU online classes. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.
Hello students, welcome to online classes. We have discussed the prehistoric period and up to Vedic religion. So all these developments in history has taken with a long span of period. But after that, when Vedic religion, which felt very tough to the people, they wanted to identify or they wanted to search another alternative religion. Why? What are the reasons behind this? Especially the people who wanted a simple religion unlike Vedic religion, and the influences of several surrounding nations, and all this led to a rise of a new religion in India. Simultaneously, two religions, that is the new religions, emerged in India, and that emergence caused by various points. That is, the first important cause for the emergence of new religion, that is complication in Vedic religion. People felt so complicated system of Vedic religion. It's not possible to common man to follow. And that is why they wanted a simple and very easy method of salvation. And when they look at the Vedic religion, it is so complicated. Nobody can understand properly except highly Brahminical class. And secondly, supremacy of the priestly classes. The priests, they considered supreme in the society, and they are always supreme, and all other categories of the people, they are considered as lower level of people, lower level of category, and this was not tolerated by the people. And this supremacy, not only in one way, but they exploited the other category of people, Brahmins or the priestly class, what we call priestly class. They exploited, and that is why people never liked this Vedic religion, and they wanted a new one, they wanted an alternative one as substitute for the religion. And thirdly, what we can see, animal sacrifice. In Vedic religion, animal sacrifice is common, but it is so costly. Especially, it was complex practice, a costly practice of Vedic religion. And people did not like this practice of animal sacrifice. The one way, it is so costly. A common man cannot practice this, and in order to get salvation, in order to get something what he wanted, he has to perform sacrifices. This is the system, and people were not able to do that. Only rich people can do sacrifices, animal sacrifices, which is so costly. This is another important cause for the rise of new religion. And fourth one, chanting of mantras. chanting of mantras, it's only meant for priestly class. A common man cannot understand mantra. He can't chant mantra. And how a common man can understand the way to God? This is shown by the priestly class. But he may not pray the God himself because he doesn't know Sanskrit, he doesn't know mantra. So these complexities in the religion ultimately fed up. Even for all the people, a major chunk of people, they never liked this religion. And one more thing, the fifth one, the caste system. In Vedic religion, when we see the earlier or early Vedic period, we never seen the caste system. But when we come to later Vedic period, we see gradually caste crept into the society. It became a major problem. And this caste system is also a sort of exploitation. And the four categories or varnas, this shows the category and exploitation from top to bottom. When people had this problem and the lower class, what we call the Shudras, they did not have any place in the society. They were considered as a lower category and people disgusted by this. And that is why even they looked at another option if there is possibility, and such option was available in the later period. And this caste system is another important cause for the rise of new religion. And ultimately, one more cause, the birth of great personalities. The sixth cause, birth of great personalities. Who are these great personalities? That is Buddha and Mahavira. When people were looking for a new option, a new religion, and it was made possible because of these great leaders like Buddha and Mahavira. They guided people. They led the people to the right way. When they opposed religion like Vedic, they showed the way for people. Very simple and simple teaching, and there is no costly affairs. So all this favored the people, and these personalities like Mahavira and Buddha, they became the great guider, they became the great leaders, they were the torch bearers to all this chunk of people or majority of the people. So these are all the way, all the causes that ultimately led to the rise of a new religion in India. Well, students, the first religion which emerged, that is the Jainism. This is one of the oldest religions in India and is the most oldest religion in India, and the Jains believe that there were 24 Tirthankaras. 24 Tirthankaras. The first Tirthankara was Adinatha or Rishabhanatha. Rishabhanatha is also called Adinatha because he is the first one, and he was the first Tirthankara, and the 24th Tirthankara was Mahavira. Mahavira was the 24th Tirthankara, and swastik was the symbol of Jainism. That is the swastik. Swastik is the symbol of Jainism, and Parshvanatha was the 23rd Tirthankara. He founded the base or basic principle of Jainism, and that was at the age of 30. He preached 4 great principles that became the base of Jainism. The first one, ahimsa. That is non-violence. Secondly, satya, truth. Thirdly, asteya, non-stealing. And fourthly, aparigraha. Aparigraha, that is non-possession of property more than required. People may require a major portion of property, but whether it is required or needed for them, what Parshvanatha says, people should possess a property which they required. How much they required. That is the basic. Not more than that. That is the 4 principles he founded, and on that basis Jainism, which continued in the later period. That is the Vartamana Mahavira. Vartamana Mahavira, he born in 599 BCE and died on 527 BCE. The early life of Mahavira and his parents were King Siddhartha and Queen Trishala Devi. Siddhartha was the head of Kshatriya clan, and Vardhamana married Princess Yashoda at the age of 18, and he had a daughter named Anoji or Anoja, and what she is also called Priyadarshini. And later Vardhamana renounced everything, every worldly pleasures, and he became an ascetic. And he involved the deep meditation, and 13 years Vardhamana led the life of self-mortification. And he made a long meditation in order to find truth, in order to understand truth. That meditation ultimately led to enlightenment of Mahavira. And he got knowledge, enlightenment at Jhimbikavana in Bihar. And after getting that knowledge, what we call Kaivalya, and he was called Kevalin. Kaivalya, Kevalin, and means omniscient, or Jina, the conqueror who had subdued his passions. And thereafter, Vardhamana came to be known as Mahavira. For the next 30 years, he traveled preaching the principles of Jainism in Koshala, Magadha, Videha and Anga, in the different parts of North India. He wandered and preached the principles of Jainism to the people. And he attained Nirvana at Pava, near Rajagraha in South Bihar, at the age of 72 in 527 BCE. Mahavira was a contemporary of Gautama Buddha, but they never met each other. Gautama Buddha also working like Mahavira with the Buddhism, and both of them, as I told earlier, they were the torch bearer to the people, and they showed the way, and upliftment of the people was their main goal. We have to see the teachings of Mahavira. What are the teachings of Mahavira? Parshvanatha said something, but all the principles what Mahavira said, it's like Parshvanatha, and Mahavira added something. As I said, the 5 great vows that is preached by Mahavira. The first one is Satya, truth. Second one is Ahimsa, non-violence. Third one, Asteya, non-stealing. Fourth one, Aparigraha, non-possession of property more than required. So all these points are the principles which were preached by, Parshvanatha. But this was followed by Mahavira, and he added one more, that is Brahmacharya, chastity. And should be chastity, that is adopt Brahmacharya. That is one more point added by Mahavira. And he also preached 3 jewels, 3 Ratna. That is 3 jewels, what we call 3 Ratnas. That is 1, right knowledge. People should have right knowledge, proper knowledge, even of God. And secondly, right faith. The faith means belief. We should have a faith with something, but it should be right faith. It should be clearly known. If it is God, we should have a faith with the God. That is the right faith. And thirdly, right conduct. That is very important in human life. If conduct lost, everything is lost. What Mahavira said, the right conduct. And this is some important teachings of Mahavira. And Mahavira did not believe in the existence of God. He never told there is God or not. He never believed. He never told there is a God, the existence of God. But he profoundly said there is the existence of soul instead of God. And he condemned the caste system and sacrificial rituals. He laid the stress on non-violence and believed that even animals, plants, stones, mud, water, fire, everything has life. They have the life. All these things, they have the life. Not only human being, but everything has life. That is the preaching and belief of Mahavira. And he advocated severe asceticism and extreme penance for the attainment of salvation. Salvation is not easily possible. but with the hard penance or extreme penance and severe asceticism, you can get salvation. Ultimately, Mahavira had the followers or disciples, and these disciples of Mahavira are called apostles. Apostles, known as Gandharas. Disciples of Mahavira were also called Gandharas or apostles. Well, this Jainism not only confined it to particular area, it spread towards other part of India gradually. How? How it was possible to spread? Because, ultimately Koshala, Magadha, Videha and Anga, it was confined only to this area in the beginning. But in the later period, because of the influences of royal patronage or kings, it spread towards other part of India. During the last days of Chandragupta Maurya, Chandragupta Maurya was the follower of Jainism, but he came to south at the last days. Southern part of India, that is to Karnataka, a place called Shravanabelagula with Bhadrabahu. Bhadrabahu and Chandragupta Maurya, they came to Shravanabelagula, and that is Chandragiri. Even today we can see in Hassan district, Shravanabelagula, even Chandragiri. Well, he observed Sallekana Vrata, fast unto death, and died in Shravanabelagula. And this royal patronage to the Jainism, that certainly led to the spread of Jainism in the major part of Karnataka, Rajasthan, Gujarat and other northern parts of India. So this is what the great influence of kings or kingdoms during that period. And then he settled when he settled in the Chandragiri hills, that is in Shravanabelagula. The people of Shravanabelagula also influenced by this, and there are large number of people, they adopted Jainism. So this became important cause for the spread of Jainism. And then Jain councils, we can see several Jain councils held during the ancient period. That is two important Jain councils. That is one, the first Jain council was held at Pataliputra in 300 BC. The purpose of this particular council was collecting and reviving the knowledge of sacred Jain texts. That is the main purpose, collecting and reviving the knowledge of Jain text. And the second Jain council was held in 512 Common Era at Vallabhi. The purpose of this Jain council was that collected texts which were written systematically. In order to write it systematically, they called this council and discussed. And important Jain literatures, for example, 14 texts, even both Shwetambaras and Digambaras, what we call Angas, 12 Angas. It was the first and foremost religious work in Jainism. There are two sects in Jainism. One is Shwetambaras. The second one is Digambaras. Shwetambaras and Digambaras. These are the two sects. Shwetambaras, they used to wear white clothes, whereas Digambaras, they do not wear the clothes. This is the difference between Shwetambaras and Digambaras. What are the contributions of Jainism to the art and architecture? The major contribution of Jainism, you can see in the ancient India, they contributed a lot for the development of art and architecture. Especially the Tiger Cave at Udayagiri, Indrasabha Cave at Ellora, Hathigumpa Cave in Orissa. They are the masterpieces and the best example for the architecture and art of Jainism. The world famous Gomadeshwara statue at Shravanabelagala and 1,000-pillared Basadi at Mudabidre are the noteworthy Jain monuments and various, statues of Gomata. Even in Venuru, Karkala, Dharmasthala, they were also their contribution. So in this way, this Jainism not only influenced Indians, as far as religion is concerned, but even it contributed for the development of art and architecture. This is what Jainism. And then we have to see simultaneously, as I said, on the other part, Buddhism was there. When Jainism under Mahavira, which was working on the one part, and another part of India, Buddhism was working under the leadership of Buddha. Gautama Buddha, who was born in 563 BCE at Lumbini Garden, now it is in Nepal, and his early name was Siddhartha. Gautama Buddha's early name was Siddhartha, and his parents were King Shuddhodana and Queen Maya Devi. And this Shuddhodana was the chief of Sakya tribe. That is called Sakya Muni. That is the Kapila Vastu. And Gautama Buddha was married to Princess Yashodhara at the age of 16. A son was born to them who was named Rahul. According to Jataka story, one evening Gautama Buddha traveled out. He wandered out of the palace because in his Jataka, as the Jataka story says, there was a story that Gautama Buddha if we go out, something will happen. So he was kept very systematically inside the palace. Unfortunately or fortunately, Gautama Buddha, once he came out, on the way he saw an old man, a sick man, a funeral procession and a sage. So these four events which was seen by Gautama Buddha totally changed the life of Buddha. After looking at that, he compared all these four, which is good. Either it is old man, or sick man, or funeral process or dead body, or a sage. Among these, Gautama Buddha selected last one, that is sage. He renounced all worldly pleasures and he was happy. There was no bindings of this worldly life and he was alone. He was enjoying, and all other people, they were under sorrows. And one day we are also become old, and after old, automatically the body will be sick. And what is the next one? That is the death. He compared these things. And before that, it is better to choose the last one, that is the sage, an ascetic life that is ultimately wonderful. And he renounced his life, wife. He renounced his child. He renounced his parents and renounced his kingdom. To find out the root causes for all the sorrows. What are the root cause for the sorrows? In order to identify, in order to find out this cause, he renounced almost all the things. All the luxurious life, what he experienced in his kingdom, he left it. And this event is known as the Great Renunciation. The Great Renunciation. But he renounced everything and came out from worldly life or family binding to lead a life of an ascetic. And after that, Buddha, Siddhartha, he spent the life of wandering ascetic. He kept himself away from the sensual desires and realized that mere penance will not bring enlightenment. Simply because of the penance, enlightenment is not possible. But he attained enlightenment under a peepal tree at Gaya at the age of 35. He then onwards came to be known as Buddha. Siddhartha became Buddha after attainment of enlightenment. And that is how Siddhartha became Buddha, as the conqueror of truth. And Tathagata, it's also called Tathagata. The religion he founded came to be called Buddhism. Buddha, he dedicated his full life after the enlightenment of, enlightenment. He dedicated his life for the preaching in the different parts of the North India. And the first sermon he has given in Deer Park, that is in Saranath, Deer Park, That is the first sermon, and it is considered, or it was called that Dharma Chakra Pravartana. His first sermon was called Dharma Chakra Pravartana, or Dharma Chakra is the symbol of Buddhism. Turning of the wheel of Dharma. Dharma Chakra Pravartana means turning of wheel of Dharma. And this Dharma Chakra became the symbol of Buddhism. Buddha attained parinirvana. He died at Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh at the age of 80. Edwin Arnold calls him Buddha as the light of Asia. He is a foreign writer. He calls. Now we come to teachings of Buddha. What are the principles he preached? Whether it is simple, whether it is complex, whether people satisfied with this principle of Buddha. Buddha preached his followers 4 basic principles. There are the 4 basic principles, such as Satya, truthfulness, Ahimsa, non-violence, Asteya, non-stealing, and Brahmacharya, chastity. These all principles also preached by Mahavira and Parshvanatha. There is no difference. These principles are common both in Buddhism and Jainism. And more than that, Buddha preached noble truths. 4 noble truths. That's what we call Arya Satya. The 4 noble truths are: worldly life is full of sorrows. This worldly life, we can't say there is an enjoyment. No, it is filled with the sorrows, difficulties, pains. When you have a desire to achieve something, so there will be a pain. And that is why he says, this worldly life is full of sorrows. Secondly, he says, desire is the root cause for sorrows. Why? He says, desire, wants, they are the root cause for all sorrows. If there is no desire, you don't have sorrows, because no pain. Sometimes we want to try to get something. If it is not possible also, we are trying. On the way of trying, you will face pain, you will get some shortcomings, you will focus to some difficulties. Why? If you don't want to get it, no, nothing will be there. That's why what he says, sorrows because of your desire. That's one point. All this worldly life full of sorrows, and this sorrow because of what? Because of desire. And thirdly, he says, when desire ceases, rebirth ceases. When you don't have any desire, and it ends ultimately, then there will be no desire. If there is no desire, there will be no rebirth. People will not get any birth. There is no next birth. Now that is why we should end our life in single life. If you want to go for another life, that is a desire, then you will face the problem, then you will face the sorrows in your life. That's why you should not go for that. And ultimately says, fourth one, desire can be overcome by following Ashtanga Marga. If you want to get rid of this desire, you do one thing, follow Ashtanga Marga. If you follow this Ashtanga Marga, 8 paths, Ashtanga Marga, then you will be relieved from the desire. If there is no desire, no pain, no sorrow. So this is very systematically said. What are the Ashtanga Marga? He says, that is right faith, and then right conduct, and right belief, right livelihood, right thought, right effort, right meditation or mindliness, and right speech. So all these things, if you follow these 8 paths, there will not be any desire. If there is no desire, there is no pain, there is no sorrows. This is what preached by Gautama Buddha. Get relaxed from the life difficulties by following these 8 paths. And then Buddha given importance to conduct and not to rituals and sacrifices. That's why he opposed the caste system and advocated equality. All are equal. There is no caste system. There is no discrimination under caste system. But only people, they are all equal. Life, human life. There is no superiority and inferiority. So that is what Buddha said. And then these Buddhist Sanghas, they spread Buddhism. The different parts of India, like Jainism, Buddhism also spread. Gradually spread it. It extended its jurisdiction from one part to another part. Buddhism spread far and wide in India. It crossed the boundaries of India and spread to China, Tibet, Myanmar, Ceylon, Central Asia and Southeast Asia. When you look at Jainism spread inside India, but Buddhism beyond India, beyond the frontiers of India, Buddhism spread in the neighboring states, neighboring countries. That influence was much. And what are the causes? Why Buddhism spread like other country, not only inside India? What are the causes for that? But we can see the simple teaching. Buddhism, it's a simple teaching, everybody can understand. There is no complexities like Vedic religion, and it is very, very simple. A normal man can understand what principle says. What is Buddhism? And that is why it reached more people, and more people were attracted by Buddhism. Secondly, vernacular language. Vernacular means local language. Buddhism, which was preached by using local language, unlike Vedic religion. The Vedic religion which was preached in Sanskrit, mantras, and they were not easy. People can't do that. They did not understand Sanskrit. But here, this language of people, that is Prakrit language, it is a popular language during that period, and that is why people adopted this religion. Thirdly, the principle of equality. What Buddhism preached? No difference among the people. All are equal. It's a very wonderful and attractive principle preached by Buddha. All are equal. There is no difference, either rich or poor, either higher caste or lower caste. No. This is the creation of human being, but there is no caste system. All are equal. Human being is human being. And fourthly, personality of Buddha. Personality of Buddha was one more cause for the spread. Attractive personality, attractive teaching, preaching of Buddha attracted many people in the different parts of India. And that is why more number of people, they adopted Buddhism, they ultimately inclined towards Buddhism. And fifthly, role of Buddhist Sanghas. The Buddhist Sanghas played a dominant role in spreading Buddhism in the different parts of North India, especially Buddhist Sanghas worked for the spread of Buddhism. And lastly, royal patronage. Buddhism became the religion of kingdom. Many kings, they adopted Buddhism, especially Ashoka, Kanishka and Harshavardhana. They were the great followers of Buddhism, and they contributed a lot to Buddhism for the development, their wealth. And when a particular religion became the state religion, automatically large number or civilian of this state, they became the followers automatically. So that led to the spread of religion because of this royal patronage. This is another important thing. Well, students, like Jainism, in Buddhism also we can see nearly 4 councils were held. The first council was held, Buddhist council was held about 483 BCE at Rajagriha. It compiled the saying of Buddha in this council. Second council, that is the Buddhist council, was held at Vaishali in 380 BCE. And it tried to remove the differences between the Buddhist monks. And third Buddhist council was held at Pataliputra in 250 BCE. And the fourth Buddhist council, which was held in 102 Common Era at Kundalivana, that is in Kashmir. A main purpose of this council was to remove the differences among the monks, but unfortunately this led to division of Buddhism into 2, that is Hinayana and Mahayana. Like Jainism, what we see, Shwetambaras and Digambaras. In Buddhism, what we see, Hinayana and Mahayana. Some, as like of Jainism, they also contributed for the art and architecture. For example, stupas, viharas, chaityas, and various such buildings. At the same time, stupas at Sanchi, Amaravati, Nagarjunakonda were the great contributions of Buddhism for the field of art and architecture. So this is what the rise of new religion, that is Jainism and Buddhism, and preachings of great leaders like Mahavira and Buddha. Students, in the next class, this is the end of this, early age, and then we come to
Don't forget to
period of
like our
kingdoms
video and
in
subscribe
the
our YouTube
next
channel for
class.
all the updates.
Thank you very much.